This is a time for justice. Welcome to today's show. We all know the Bible verse, Matthew chapter 24, verse 6 through 8. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains. Well, we see this now, right? We're seeing, obviously, rumors of war. We have the charade going on with these nations rising up against one another, but really they're rising up, working together against the people. We have China now with Russia talking about how China is thinking about giving military weapons to Russia to create this superpower of China and Russia, which would easily wipe out America because, of course, here in America, all the Democrats are just clueless, walking, talking, worthless zombies. And they're all for our military getting engaged in gender equality and pronouns and things like that, while the countries that have massive militaries who are ready to just be assassins and are pretty much super soldiers, ready to take over America. Now, again, these are rumors of wars that are going on. But I want to make note of these things. Now, we see famines, obviously, beginning to occur with food shortages, etc. Other countries are having famines. We are seeing the earthquake that just took place in Turkey, which, of course, these are controlled things that they create. This doesn't specifically say you will hear of rumors of wars. That's what it says. You will hear of them. You will, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Now, that doesn't mean that some of these things aren't controlled by these people, because of course they are. They have the technology to do these things. They have the technology to do weather manipulation. Does God control everything? Yes. Can God oversee their plans? Yes. Will God eventually return? Yes. Will God win? We already know that. But I want to show people about China, Russia, and America and how unbelievable this charade is, this show that they're putting on. Because of the balloon, of course, the whole distraction with the balloon while they're not, putting up chemical bombs around our country, because of that, China's upset. So China is going to potentially give weapons to Russia, these two massive superpowers, right? Which could eventually lead us into World War III. So while those rumors are going on, you would think America would be concerned. But let's start with taking a look at these rumors.
Mr. Secretary, how did the meeting go? Anything you can share?
The entire world wants to know how the U.S. and China are getting along. China's top diplomat Wang Yi has been warned not to intervene in the war in Ukraine by giving Russia weapons, a move that could destabilize global politics.
We have information that gives us concern that they are considering providing lethal support to Russia in the war against Ukraine. And it was important for me to share very clearly with Wang Yi that this would be a serious problem.
The two superpowers met informally during a global security conference, a positive sign of an attempt at diplomacy.
They just shot it.
Blinken canceled his planned trip to Beijing earlier this month after a U.S. fighter jet shot down a balloon floating through North American airspace. Washington says China was using it for surveillance. Just hours before their meeting, Wang had strong words for the U.S., too. He called the Americans' decision to shoot down the balloon unimaginable and bordering on hysteria.
The level of tension between China and the United States over the balloon incident shows just how fragile this relationship is and just how easy it is for an incident to escalate tensions quickly.
Expect further escalation if China gives Russia weapons. So far, Beijing has refused to condemn Moscow's actions toward Ukraine, but its support so far has only been political and diplomatic. China has been careful not to violate Western sanctions.
It is also critical for the U.S. and for China to manage the relationship and to manage this tension such that it doesn't become an open confrontation or another Cold War.
Experts we spoke to say this is the latest sign that global politics is heading into a more dangerous era. And Canada will not be immune. That's why they say Ottawa needs to spend more on its military and foreign service so that Canada is prepared. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
So you would think, right? People in America would be talking about this. Instead, what are people talking about? Well, they're talking about, Prince Harry. And I don't even know what the topic is today, but nonsensical nonsense that means absolutely nothing. So while they were talking about the balloon, of course, so the balloon shoot down, that whole psyop is obviously, Russia's so angry we shot down a balloon that was flying over our country that they actually might arm Russia. Well, of course they're going to work together because remember, Babylon America must fall. So while this is going on, you think America would be talking about gearing up for potential war, protecting our citizens, doing something about the fact that they just allowed a balloon, which, obviously is fake, fly over our country. But no, what's going on? Oh, President Biden decided to go to Ukraine while this is going on. I mean, it's just such a charade. So he's in Ukraine walking the streets where supposedly Ukraine is under attack. Yet Zelensky can walk out in the open with the technology they have. They couldn't just kill him at this point, right? When Biden, their other enemy, they're just walking around the open in Ukraine while alarms are going off. Now, is this just a way to prop up Biden to make him look like he's a tough political hero? He's not afraid of anything? I mean, sure, that's probably part of the mind control psyop they're putting on here, but it's just pure stupidity. And if it was a real war zone, things like this wouldn't be going on.
We begin with breaking news. President Biden has arrived in Kyiv, Ukraine, ahead of the first anniversary of the war in Ukraine.
It comes just as the U.S. warns that China is now strongly considering providing military aid to Vladimir Putin. ABC's Ian Pannell is in Kyiv with the president. Ian, what's the scene like there?
Yeah, I mean, unprecedented scenes really this morning. Everyone woke up. The entire centre of the city was essentially locked down. No traffic was allowed out on the streets. Even access for journalists, pedestrians was totally restricted. And then the rumours started to swirl that President Biden might actually have crossed over the border and come to Ukraine. Eventually, we saw him in the scene behind me. It's the Heavenly 100 Wall. In other words, it's honouring those people who lost their lives in Maidan. This was back in 2014. As part of really Ukraine's struggle for freedom, President Biden went there. It was a day to remember the dead. It's also President's Day. He and President Zelensky stood side by side. I think a major show of solidarity and support. This is a day I think that many Ukrainians will welcome as the one-year anniversary of the war approaches. Of course, there are questions about how long America and the rest of the NATO allies will stick by Ukraine as Russia presses its assault in the east of the country. I think today they got their answer, that certainly for America, they plan to stay with Ukraine as long as it takes. The fact that President Biden crossed over the border and came here was a major security challenge, I think, for the White House and an incredible risk to take. While he was out there, shortly after the bugler was playing, we heard the air raid sirens go off, a reminder that this is a city, this is a country that has been consistently attacked since day one of this war, a war that was not of Ukraine's choosing, not of Ukraine's making, entirely down to Russia and Vladimir Putin. And I think President Biden got to see for himself the reality on the ground for Ukrainians. He'll get a sense of the atmosphere in the city, how tense it is, the damage that's been caused by Russia, and what everyday life is like for Ukrainians.
And Ian, what message does the president's visit to this war zone send to one Vladimir Putin?
I think it sends a very strong message. We're also going to see a major day in the Russian calendar, where Russia honours its armed forces. That's also taking place this week, just one day before the one-year anniversary of the war. Now, President Putin has made it clear that he will pursue his aims here. At the very least, we see his troops on the offensive in the east of the country, especially around the key city of Bakhmut, where there is intense fighting taking place there. ABC News speaking to a U.S. Marine who's fighting with an international brigade there, who said basically life expectancy out in the east is something just like 4 hours. So President Biden gets to see it. He gets to show solidarity and support for Ukraine.
Biden.
So how people don't see what they're doing here. I mean, Ukraine is a war zone, right? Is this what you envision a war zone as? Bono, Ben Stiller, Sean Penn, Nancy Pelosi, now Joe Biden walking the streets with this guy, right? While alarms are going off like tornado alarms. Have you ever been to a town where there's a twister coming through? It's pretty scary, actually. And they sound the alarm. Oh, they're sounding the alarms. They're walking around like nothing's going on. They're barely guarded by military. I mean, it couldn't be a bigger show. Yeah, it's a smart idea. It's so tragic over in it's so much warfare in Ukraine that we need to send all our tax money over there and fund this thing. But you look at it and everybody's just walking the streets, right? That makes sense, right? That's like when you see like or think about Saving Private Ryan or some of these war movies from the past, Apocalypse Now. Yeah, stuff in Vietnam, right? You're just walking the streets and it's just insanity. Really, it is. So we have rumors of war, and they're obviously going to set us up for this. We're sitting ducks in America. Let's be real. The stuff that they keep talking, and you know what's the funniest thing about this? I should have said this in the beginning of the video, so hopefully you're still listening. But the funniest thing about all of this is that here in America, there's a war on the citizens. The liberals don't think that there is. Our government is telling us that we need to give up all of our guns. Biden's even gone on the record as saying things like, what do you think? You're going to fight us? You're going to fight the home government? You're going to need F-15s, right? Hinting at us fighting against the government, which is insanity. A president would say that. But we're giving weapons to Ukrainian civilians so they can protect themselves against Russia. So why don't we use that narrative here? Why doesn't the mainstream media come out and say, well, if we're giving weapons to those people because they're under attack, what if we were under attack in America? Oh, well, you'll never be under attack in America, they tell you. Oh, we wouldn't be? Well, it looks to us like our own government is attacking us and setting us up to be attacked. So wouldn't you rather be armed and protected? Besides the fact, you could look at it and say, is our military equipped to defend us? I'm not saying that there's not great people in the military, tough people. Luckily, I think most of the veterans who are now out of the military would be people on our side defending us because they're not in this. But the military in place now would obviously be there to defend the government because the government would call upon them and they'd have to do whatever they ask. But are these people even capable if we did go to a real war? Of course, they're probably not, because their focus, their training is on pronouns and racial equality and nonsense. And the libs are like, this is great. This is what we need, because, of course, they're weak, they're pathetic, and they're going to be, walked over when crap hits the fan. They already are being walked over. But again, they're useless eaters, as the global elites look at them as. I mean, we could look at them the same way. What do they provide to society? Nothing, except taking away and stripping us of our rights, because they're being puppets for the New World Order, because they're just doing what they say and repeating it and then trying to spread it around like an STD, realistically. So we have these rumors of war. We have our government, which is now, if you haven't looked, focusing again on disarming citizens, trying to pass more and more bills. And again, a lot of us are not going to comply with that because it's just ridiculous. But they want to put these red flag laws in so that people who are online conspiracy theorists could be linked as white extremists, and then they can come and take everybody's guns, disarm us, and leave us as legitimate sitting ducks, which is what they want to do. Could it be more obvious? Yes, we're against assault rifles, but we're going to give assault rifles to the citizens in Ukraine. And they're like, well, of course we're going to give it to them. They're under attack. They have no military. They have to fight for themselves against big old bad Russia. Oh, okay. But that'll never happen in America, right? That's what they'll say. You don't have to do that here. You don't have to worry about that here. Oh, we don't? I think everybody's worried. I think everybody's concerned about our government and our military and what's going on. And if you're not, then you're completely gone anyway. So you might as well, like I said in a previous video, you don't have to lock yourself in a closet, but I mean, you might as well just buy your burial plot now and get ready, because you're just useless at this point. You don't see what's coming. I thank everyone for being here. Hope you're doing well. God bless you and your families.